hang for sure.
You can read the story of the Prince and the Pauper in a BBC children's book. A major new series exploring the Caribbean and Central America, its origins, wildlife and ancient civilizations, Spirits of the Jaguar, begins in just over 10 minutes on BBC2.
Can't I just have a kiss?
Of course.
One romance is going off the boil, while another is just starting to simmer.
I have this daughter, Rini.
I love her. It's just the way she looks at me, Chef, like...
There's notes are funny as folk, isn't that right, Rini?
And what about the new side dish?
I think you are drop-dead gorgeous.
Hey.
Chef, tomorrow 8:30 on BBC1.
If they knew about the 6 months in the slammer that's waiting for them, they might not be so chirpy.
Quarantine, a last line against the dreaded rabies.
If we got this wrong, the implications would be horrendous.
Or an outdated practice causing more harm than good.
Don't really want to be without them.
Panorama in the Doghouse, tomorrow 9:30, BBC1.
The news now on BBC1 at 5:45 with Chris Lowe.
A second student at Cardiff University has died from meningitis and a third is seriously ill. Hundreds more have been vaccinated today in an urgent attempt to contain the outbreak. The Channel Tunnel operators have been staging a mock emergency to try to convince the authorities it's safe. And farewell David Campese, whose long career in Australian colours has ended in victory. Good evening. A second student at the University of Wales in Cardiff has died of meningitis. The 19-year-old woman became ill on Friday and died early this morning. 3 other students diagnosed as having the disease are being treated in hospital.
The second victim of the Cardiff meningitis outbreak was living in the same hall of residence as the 19-year-old woman law undergraduate who died on Thursday, and the 3 others believed to have the same strain of the disease. The pharmacy student was taken ill on Friday evening and died in the early hours of this morning.
We are very conscious of the enormous grief that the parents must be experiencing, and also the concern and sadness of her fellow students.
Health officials say the antibiotics issued to around 700 residents of the hall will have killed off all meningitis bacteria from the nose and throat of the students, greatly reducing the risk of further infection. A vaccination program for longer-term protection has begun today, and students are being urged to stay on the campus.
We can inoculate over 800 people in a very short period of time. If they scatter and distribute throughout Britain, we will remain uncertain that all of them have been vaccinated.
Students at the hall, shocked by today's second death, seem to be heeding that advice.
I wouldn't want to go home because you can pass it on to your family and, friends. It's better to keep it all in one place, and we've got all the doctors and people up here.
I think it's better staying here because you can all look out for each other and whatever.
Meningitis is normally spread through intimate contact or within families. The 5 victims were not close friends, and the cause of the outbreak remains a mystery. Volunteers from the Meningitis Trust are manning one of several helplines aimed at reassuring students that the measures taken should prevent any further spread of the disease. Tim Hirsch, BBC News, Cardiff.
Eurotunnel hope to get permission to resume passenger services through the Channel Tunnel by the end of the week. They say they're satisfied with the results of an emergency drill today, in which it took 2 hours and 10 minutes to evacuate a Eurostar train and get passengers onto a rescue train. But a local MP, Roger Gale, called the exercise a meaningless charade.
Some 500 volunteer passengers gathered at Ashford International to take part in the fire drill. All were Eurostar personnel and their families. None of them seemed worried about the day ahead.
Well, I would have thought if any day it would be the safest day to go.
I mean, much less chance of any problems here than if I go on an aeroplane, or much less risk than coming down in the car this morning.
The train left Ashford on time at 11:23 in the morning. On board, along with the volunteers, were representatives of the Intergovernmental Safety Commission, which had ordered Eurotunnel to conduct today's exercise. When the train reached the section of the undamaged tunnel, parallel to where the accident happened, the evacuation drill began. The volunteer passengers had a 20-minute journey through the service tunnel to a waiting Le Shuttle car train in the damaged tunnel, which carried them back to Britain. It took about 2 hours to evacuate all the passengers. Eurotunnel's operations director, Alain Bertrand, called that a success and said he hoped to see Eurostar passenger services running again this week.
Eurotunnel has done more exercises than any other means of transport in the past two years, and I'm satisfied that they have helped us to develop very efficient procedures.
But one of Kent's Conservative MPs, Roger Gale, called the whole event a meaningless charade and accused Eurotunnel of putting profit before safety.
It is an exercise involving people who know what they're doing, know where they're going to disembark, and crew and staff who know where they are going to be disembarked. That has little relevance to the kind of circumstances experienced by those who were caught in the club car on a train in the tunnel a fortnight ago and who found themselves lying on the floor gasping for air.
The Intergovernmental Safety Commission will now have to decide whether Eurotunnel has done enough to evacuate passengers in the event of another fire. Eurotunnel says it expects an announcement within the next day or two and to be able to reopen booking soon after. Alexis Rowell, BBC News, Ashford.
Mother Teresa is critically ill in hospital in Calcutta. Her health worsened after her latest heart operation on Friday. The Nobel Peace Prize winner, who's 86, is now suffering from lung and liver complaints as well as heart trouble. That has forced doctors to postpone further heart treatment. The charity Crisis claims that the government has failed to cut the number of homeless people dying on the streets, even though the total of those sleeping rough has gone down. It also says the homeless are dying younger. The average age is now 42, compared with a national life expectancy of 76.
First light in London, on a park bench, swaddled against the cold and rain, evidence of the struggle to survive on the streets. Research by Crisis shows that it's a fight being lost by a growing number of people. Their study, using London coroners' figures, indicate that although numbers on the streets have fallen, the number of deaths remains the same. Also, the average age of death is down to 42. Homelessness is a problem mirrored across the country. The Chapel Street Day Centre in Salford is packed. Those who work there say they've witnessed the devastating effect of sleeping rough. Sister Kathleen recalls the death of one regular visitor who was mentally ill.
Tom left a diary with us, and it wasn't really till I began to read that after he died that I had any idea what was going on in Tom's mind. 6:30 p.m. Big fella appeared on bus station. Left me bottle of milk. 10:30 a.m. Victoria Station for a wash and a shave. Place quiet. But my shadow came in shortly after me.
Army mattresses from World War II pressed into service in Warrington as Crisis opens 27 winter shelters across the country. The charity says many of those living on the streets are the hardcore, the most vulnerable.
Every 5 days somebody is dying on the streets in London of, in many instances, a Victorian disease which we thought we'd seen back of.
Rough sleepers say they need more than a roof over their heads.
That they need to feel valued and loved and not presumed upon and judged by anyone who thinks they're better than us. Because, believe you me, it could happen to anyone.
Tomorrow, the government opens 13 winter shelters, and just last month it announced it was expanding its Rough Sleepers initiative. But Crisis says it wants to see more special healthcare teams and extra winter shelters across the whole country to provide a vital lifeline to the homeless. Triona Holden, BBC News.
The Labour Party has drawn up a new code of conduct in an attempt to keep a tight hold on party discipline. The code will require MPs not to criticise party policy and not to do anything that might bring the party into disrepute.
Here's the member for Newport West, Mr. Paul Flynn.
Paul Flynn, who this week was voted Backbencher of the Year, not for his loyalty towards the Labour leadership, but the complete opposite. He's an outspoken critic who refuses to be cowed and is proud of his independence of mind.
There's a need for restless, bloody-minded backbenchers who are incurably awkward.
But on Wednesday, the Labour Party is likely to agree an unprecedented code of conduct for its MPs. They'll be expected to vote regularly, to refrain from attacking each other, and do nothing which brings the party into disrepute. And this is targeted at full-time members of the awkward squad, like Ken Livingstone. The threat of discipline hangs over those who don't comply, and that horrifies the Brent East MP.
I suspect what we'll see is you'll be told, well, you brought the party into disrepute by not voting to build another nuclear submarine. And that sort of stuff, I think, is really a contempt for democracy. People elect MPs to represent them, not simply to rubber stamp whatever a party leader puts forward.
Whether it be standing up for a constituent or adhering to a principle, some backbenchers will always find something to rebel about. But what this new disciplinary code shows is the extent to which Labour is planning ahead. If the party wins the next election, Tony Blair wants his MPs to know that they won't be able to rock the boat in the same way that Tory dissenters have done throughout John Major's leadership. And when Labour's draft manifesto was endorsed overwhelmingly, it made it easier for the leadership to argue that MPs too must fall into line.
Ordinary party members can be disciplined for bringing the party into dispute.
Rather odd if an elected Labour MP doesn't have the same rule applied to them.
Dissident MPs aren't just being shown the stick. The carrot is that under a Labour government there'd be much wider consultation with backbenchers. But it's hard to believe that that's going to stop the hardened rebel. John Sopel, BBC News.
Parents in Scotland have been asked to return any packets of Baby Dream extra thick baby wipes they may have bought. It follows the discovery of a razor blade in one pack. The manufacturers say they are investigating. A number of French fishing boats plan to set sail from Normandy and Brittany tonight for the waters around the Channel Islands. Their crews are angry about Guernsey's decision to abandon an agreement allowing the French access. Guernsey says it's had to ban French boats because France has not permitted reciprocal access to its fishing grounds. From tomorrow, Guernsey says it will apprehend any French vessel that comes into the two fishing areas known as the Haricot and Sark boxes. But French fishermen say they'll resort to violence unless their fishing rights are restored.
In the fishing ports of Normandy, for the moment, all is calm, but a new confrontation with Britain is clearly on the horizon. These boats will be sailing within hours for the waters off the Channel Islands, where France says its trawlers are entitled to fish. A deal allowing them access lapsed last night because the French wouldn't allow boats from the Channel Islands to fish their waters in return. As French trawler skippers made final preparations to sail tonight, they said they'd ignore warnings from the Guernsey authorities that they face arrest if they carry on fishing. And they say they expect the French government to give them forceful backing.
L'État français devra réagir.
If we're arrested, France will have to react to defend its fishermen and their rights of access. These have been common waters since 1839.
They are no strangers to stories of confrontations with foreign fleets over fishing rights in ports like Granville. The local economy is heavily dependent on the trawlers, and one English restaurant owner in the town says the French certainly won't back down.
Well, they'll go right to the end. If they think they've got a right to go and fish there, and if they think the laws should be changed, they won't give up, and they'll all stick together, and they'll go right to the very end until they get what they want.
With one French naval vessel already at sea near the disputed waters, and others standing by to join it, the stakes in this dispute are high. The authorities here say this could all be settled by negotiation, but with the French Navy on standby and with instructions to protect the rights of French fishermen, the possibility of serious confrontation at sea can't be ruled out. Kevin Connolly, BBC News, Normandy.
Tens of thousands of demonstrators have again taken to the streets of the Serbian capital Belgrade, demanding the resignation of President Milosevic. They're angered by the government's decision to cancel recent local election results, which gave the opposition victory.
Vesti. Beograd 92.
Radio station B92, broadcasting the latest news about opposition demonstrations in Belgrade. But all most of its listeners can hear is this. Since Thursday, their signal has been jammed. President Milosevic has his state-run media ignoring the 2-week-long protest, and he's squashing any independent communications. So away from the big cities, there's both ignorance and indifference to the outrage about the president's crude fiddling of the recent municipal election results. Families like the Stankovic's couldn't care less about demonstrations and arguments for democratic change. We're not interested in that, they say. Nothing to do with us. The Stankovic's are the solid backbone of the president's regime. And they always vote, they add, for whoever is in power. The protesters in Belgrade this afternoon seem a world away from the Stankovic's, but they were out in their tens of thousands yet again. The demonstrators know that they're unlikely to either reach or to influence the rural population or the traditional supporters of the president. However, they feel that this daily protest is the only way they can exert influence on Mr. Milosevic. Vuk Draskovic, one of the main opposition leaders, was adamant that they'll go on until they achieve change. Eggs, firecrackers and argument are their only weapons, but they need wider support. Kate Adey, BBC News, Belgrade.
2 former pupils are considering suing their old schools for failing to give them an adequate education. The schools, which haven't been named, were among those described by government inspectors as failing.
212 schools have failed Ofsted inspections. The Ridings in West Yorkshire has recently joined that list. It's not clear which schools the boy and girl considering legal action attended, nor their identity. But they've obtained legal aid to pursue the claims that schools failed to meet their educational needs.
They went to school at the age of 11, hoping to leave school with qualifications and be in a reasonable position on the job market. They have left school without any qualifications. The government has marked the school as failing. The school has failed these children.
Mr. Rabinovich last month helped gain £30,000 compensation out of court for a former pupil in Richmond, Surrey, who said he'd been bullied. Teaching unions were unhappy with that precedent, especially as the school denied the allegation, but insurers didn't want to contest it. Widespread legal action by former pupils who've not done well would be financially crippling.
I don't believe that they should have a legal remedy as such. I think once you embark upon that road, it's a disaster. I think that is to seek compensation in legal terms, which has got nothing at all to do with education.
A senior source at the Office for Standards in Education says the possibility of teenagers suing their old schools is interesting. Information on schools which have failed inspections has been kept. Any successful case would set a precedent, but it would be hard for former pupils to prove. Wesley Kerr, BBC News, Ofsted.
Now sport, and rugby union's greatest ever try scorer David Campese has ended his international career by helping Australia to victory over Wales.
A day of emotion for 2 of rugby's great names. For Australia's David Campese, the 101st and final international cap of a spectacular career. And for another 34-year-old Jonathan Davies, the bridging of an 8-year gap since he last played for Wales. But if Welsh expectations were weighing on his shoulders, then it didn't show as he calmly gave his side an early lead. Campese too was in the thick of the action. His uncharacteristic handling error was spotted by everyone, it seemed, except the referee. As Welsh players and fans screamed for an Australians took full advantage as Matt Burke touched down in the corner. A Michael Broyle try gave Australia a 12-point lead at half-time. And after the break, the Welsh remained under heavy pressure. Then came the moment of the match, as Gareth Thomas's smart interception left him with a straight race for the line. With 40,000 voices cheering him on, he evaded Joe Roff's last-ditch tackle to go over for a glorious try. A Davies penalty put Wales ahead, only for Australia to claw their way back. More concerted pressure ended when a penalty try was awarded for collapsing a maul. That ensured an Australian win and a triumphant send-off for David Campese.
A victory is always a victory, and you know, I've never been one of these people to say, oh, this is my last game, you know, a few tears. I've had a fantastic career, I've had a great time, and to see Jonathan out there and have a few smiles here and there, it's great.
While Wales could take heart from their display, this was Campasi's moment, and the Arms Park crowd rose as one to acclaim the end of a thrilling international career. James Helm, BBC News.
And that's all from the newsroom for the moment. Peter Sissons will be here at 5 to 10, so from me, good evening.
Hello again. We've got some blustery winds to contend with this evening. Gusts of around 40 miles an hour in the south, closer to 60 miles an hour up across Scotland. Now, the good news for southern Britain is those winds will gradually ease down through the next 24 hours. However, up in the far north, even tomorrow afternoon, I think gusts very close to gale force there. Now, they're blowing in some quite heavy blustery showers. They're showing up quite nicely on the weather radar, and I think they'll keep going in similar sorts of areas overnight tonight. Up over the higher ground, they could well fall as sleet and snow, and you may well hear the odd rumble of thunder. But with that blustery wind tonight, I don't think we've got to worry about any frosts. Now, tomorrow, sunshine and showers for most of us. Not too many showers on the eastern side, the most frequent ones up to the northwest, where they could be wintry, and once again, there could be some hail and thunder. Top temperatures tomorrow in the south, around about 8 or 9 degrees. But later on in the day, the clouds will be gathering across the southwest, some wet weather moving in there, perhaps even a little bit of sleetiness over the higher ground, the West Country moors, the Brecon Beacons, the Comeragh Mountains across in southern Ireland. And the reason for that, this developing area of low pressure, which could cause us more problems during Monday night and Tuesday. We'll keep you posted.
This is BBC1 for the Midlands.
Good evening. An investigation's been launched after an elderly woman who suffered from Alzheimer's disease died in a house fire in Coventry. The 73-year-old had been receiving daycare from social services. Neighbours say she shouldn't have been left on her own at all. The fire is believed to have been started by an electrical fault. Fire staff found the body of the 73-year-old woman towards the back of the house. She'd apparently gone the wrong way in her attempts to get out. Neighbours say they'd privately expressed concerns about her being alone at all.
She's been here on numerous occasions and she's been hallucinating and all sorts of things, and I've always thought it wasn't right that she was on her own, and it's like this is the impact of it.
The woman only woke up when smoke and flames reached her bed. It had been decided not to fit a smoke alarm in the house in case the noise confused her.
The lady suffered from Alzheimer's disease and was very confused by noises such as the telephone, and obviously a smoke detector would probably have added to the confusion.
Nevertheless, Coventry Social Services insist the woman was better off by herself than she would have been in full-time care.
There were supported neighbours, there was supportive family, there was a proper assessment done, there was an enormous amount of help going in. As you know, she was going to daycare 6 days a week. The 7th day she went to her family. There's help getting her up in the morning, putting her to bed at night. I think all the agencies did the best that they could.
The pensioner's family will have their chance to discuss the tragedy when they meet social services staff. Investigators have established that a fire which destroyed a historic mill house in Derby was started deliberately. A large pile of waxed paper was set alight at the maltings yesterday afternoon, and nearby homes and shops were evacuated. Investigators say the fire appears to have been started on the ground floor by someone who'd broken in. The first day of December has seen stores across the Midlands report a big rise in the number of Christmas shoppers. With the Christmas market seen as crucial, many outlets have invested heavily in publicity, and they say it's starting to pay off.
The queues for Santa's Grotto were matched by those for the car parks. The car park in Stoke-on-Trent's main shopping centre was full before the shops were even open. Whilst the children placed their orders with Father Christmas, for the stores, the festive period has become crucial.
It's 40% of our year's profits, 20% of our year's turnover. It's extremely important that we get Christmas right, and it's extremely important that we keep the customers happy so that they come back.
40,000 shoppers visited the city's Potteries shopping centre today, 15% up on this time last year. 13 security cameras have just been installed around the centre, and 160,000 free Christmas shopping magazines sent out. The investment is paying off.
It is a good Christmas. It's already a good Christmas. It started early and it's growing
better than ever before, I think, because everyone's working together on security, on producing an excellent, broad-based product, a good experience for everybody.
After improving security and its image, Stoke-on-Trent city centre is hoping trade will continue to be brisk. For shopping centres across the Midlands, the next 24 days will be very important. Matthew Roberts, Midlands Today, Stoke-on-Trent.
A special blood testing clinic was set up in the Midlands this weekend to search for bone marrow donors for black leukemia sufferers. Lee Heslop from Great Barr has been told a transplant is his last hope. The African Caribbean Leukemia Trust, which was set up in April, has so far registered more than 2,000 donors, but there are still not enough. An exact match needs to come from someone from the same ethnic background. Football, one result from the Nationwide League Division 1 this afternoon. At Molineux, Wolves beat Manchester City 3-0. Ewan Roberts scored 2. And finally, tomorrow's weather outlook. After widespread overnight showers, the rain will continue in all parts, and by later on, some may be wintry, especially over northern hills. There may be some sunshine, but gusty westerly winds will make highs of 7 Celsius feel quite chilly. And that's all for tonight. Midlands Today is back at 6:30 tomorrow evening, and we have bulletins throughout the course of the day on BBC1 and BBC2. But for now, goodbye.